An octopus has no bones, no shell, and barely any way to fight back. It should be one of the easiest meals in the entire ocean. And yet, somehow, this soft, defenseless creature has survived for hundreds of millions of years, outlasting predators that are faster, stronger, and far better armed. How does something with no real weapons keep winning? Today, we're diving into the strange and brilliant survival strategy of the octopus, an animal that doesn't fight its enemies so much as it disappears, deceives, and outthinks them. By the end of this video, you'll understand why marine biologists consider the octopus one of the most cunning problem solvers in the natural world, and why some of its tricks still leave researchers amazed decades after first observing them. To understand how an octopus survives, you first have to understand how vulnerable it actually is. Unlike a crab or lobster, an octopus has no hard shell to hide behind. Its body is almost entirely soft tissue, which means nearly any predator with a strong bite, a moray eel, a shark, a seal, could kill it in seconds if it ever got the chance. On paper, the octopus looks like it lost the evolutionary lottery, but that softness turns out to be part of the secret. Because an octopus has no rigid skeleton, its body can squeeze through gaps barely wider than its own eyeball. A creature the size of a soccer ball can pour itself through a crack you could barely fit 2 fingers into. That alone buys it options most animals never get. But squeezing into hiding spots is just the beginning. The octopus's real superpower lives in its skin. Just beneath the surface are thousands of tiny pigment-filled sacs called chromatophores, each one controlled directly by the nervous system. When the octopus wants to change color, it doesn't wait for a slow hormonal shift the way a chameleon does. It fires nerve signals straight to the skin, and the color shift happens almost instantly. Underneath those chromatophores are other structures that can change the texture of the skin itself, raising bumps and ridges to mimic coral, rock, or seaweed. Within a second or two, an octopus resting on open sand can transform into something that looks like it was never there at all. Here's where it gets strange, though. For a long time, scientists assumed this color-matching ability meant octopuses could see in vivid color, the way we do. But research has suggested something almost paradoxical. Octopuses may actually be colorblind. Their eyes appear to have only one type of light-sensing cell, which should make full-color vision impossible. So how does a colorblind animal produce such precise color camouflage? Some researchers propose that the octopus's skin may contain light-sensitive cells of its own, effectively allowing the body to sense color directly, separate from the eyes. It's still an area of active study, but the idea alone reframes how we think about camouflage. This may not be about copying what the eyes see. It may be an animal that perceives its environment through its entire body. Camouflage is only the first layer of defense. When hiding fails and a predator gets close, the octopus has a second trick: full-blown deception. Certain species, like the mimic octopus found in the waters of Southeast Asia, don't just blend into the background, they impersonate other animals entirely. Researchers have documented individuals flattening their bodies and undulating to resemble a venomous flatfish, or tucking their arms to imitate the banded pattern of a sea snake. It's not random mimicry either. Observations suggest the octopus can select which animal to imitate, depending on the specific threat nearby, essentially reading the situation and choosing the most convincing disguise. For a soft-bodied creature with no real weapons, borrowing someone else's reputation is remarkably effective. And if disguise doesn't work, the octopus has a far more aggressive backup plan, one that sounds almost like a magic trick. When truly cornered, it releases a thick cloud of dark ink into the water. That cloud does more than block a predator's view. The ink contains a compound that can interfere with a predator's sense of smell, dulling the very sense many ocean hunters rely on most. In the confusion, the octopus jets away, using a form of propulsion where it forces water rapidly through a funnel-like structure called a siphon, launching itself backward in a burst of speed nothing about its usual slow crawling movement would suggest it's capable of. Some species even leave behind a decoy, a blob of ink roughly shaped like their own body, giving the predator something to strike while the real octopus is already gone. Even the octopus's body itself is built for emergencies. If a predator does manage to grab hold, certain species can perform what's called autotomy, deliberately detaching the trapped arm. That severed arm doesn't just fall limp, it continues twitching and moving on its own for a period afterward, driven by the nervous system that's distributed throughout each limb, rather than centralized entirely in the brain. In fact, roughly 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are located not in its head, but out in its arms. Each arm can taste, sense, and even react semi-independently. So while a predator is distracted by a wriggling severed limb, the rest of the octopus, arm regeneration and all, is already making its escape. This is where most people assume the story ends, a soft animal with clever tricks running away. But newer research paints an even more surprising picture. Some octopuses don't just flee from danger, they plan for it. In one well-documented case, researchers observed a species now nicknamed the coconut octopus, collecting discarded coconut shell halves and carrying them across the seafloor, tucked beneath its own body. It wasn't using the shells in the moment, it was transporting them for later, then assembling them into a makeshift armored shelter when a threat appeared. That behavior, carrying a tool now for use in the future, is a hallmark of forward planning, something scientists once associated almost exclusively with animals like crows, elephants, and primates. Watching an invertebrate with no social structure and a lifespan of only a year or two do something similar forced many researchers to rethink what intelligence even requires. And that brings us to the real answer behind everything we've covered. The octopus doesn't survive because it's strong, fast, or armored. It survives because its entire body evolved as a decentralized problem-solving machine, a creature that can taste with its skin, sense with its arms, disguise itself as another species, weaponize its own ink, sacrifice a limb without hesitation, and plan for danger before it even arrives. Every one of these tricks on its own is impressive. Together, they explain why an animal with essentially no natural weapons has outsurvived countless predators that were built to kill it. The octopus never needed to be the strongest thing in the ocean. It only needed to be the hardest to catch, to see, and to predict. And on every one of those fronts, it may be one of the most sophisticated animals in the sea. What makes the octopus so remarkable isn't a single ability. It's how many different survival strategies evolved inside one soft, short-lived body, none of them requiring size or strength to work. Camouflage handles the predators it never wants to meet. Mimicry and ink handle the ones that get close. Regeneration and its unusual nervous system handle the moments when running out of options. And in certain species, genuine forward planning handles threats that haven't even happened yet. Most octopus species live for only about 1 to 2 years, which means every one of these behaviors had to be built into their biology from birth. There's no time to learn slowly from experience the way a longer-lived animal might. Perhaps that's the most striking part of all. Intelligence in nature doesn't always look like a large brain or a long life. Sometimes it looks like a creature that rewrote the rules of survival with nothing but soft skin, sharp instincts, and a body built to disappear.